We thank God for this section. We are still looking at invading the cosmos. And so far we have seen how the story of man's rebellion unfolded throughout scripture. We have seen how the devil decided to work in concert with man to establish another Eden that will be standing in contradiction to the purpose of God, to the kingdom of God. And we have seen how there are two clearly distinct ways: the way of his will and the way of I will. And all the major civilizations that took place, under took place under man's watch was characterized by I will, and the devil took advantage of it. And I say that the devil also, because he had authority now to set up a kingdom which will govern or rule the earth for as long as Adam's lease was in force, started setting up the gates of hell on this earth, openings of hell into the earth, and then started putting gods or spirits or his powers and his lieutenants, his cohorts, to man these gates of hell. So the first establishment, the first major establishment was that of Cain. Cain built the first civilization, and he was the leader of that first civilization, where he named the city after his son. Then the second civilization was Noah's age, Noah's time. Man had become more sophisticated. So now the devil too instituted, or the devil too appointed one of his people, one of his cohorts, to also oversee that gate. There was another gate of hell that was also open. And we saw how perversion entered the world. Perversion entered humanity, through the ancestors, or through incest, and through the perversion that the fallen angels introduced into humanity. Now, all those things were supposed to, they did that to corrupt God's line. And God was committed to preserving his line. I preached a message called The Battle of the Seeds. And I traced the two lines from Genesis to Revelation, the two lines that the two trees produced. These two lines were in opposition to each other. And God always made sure he protected his line, the line of I will. For instance, when in Adam's, in Cain's civilization, when Cain started building and all, and there was that civilization and man was busy and all that, that was when God was also calling Seth's line, working with people like Enoch, working with people like Enoch. Enoch was there around that time. He came from Seth. There are two Enochs. Cain's firstborn is Enoch, but there's another Enoch in Genesis 5, the one who worked with God and God took him. So all those ones also came from Seth's line. And so anytime a man attempted to build and the devil attempted to take advantage of man, then God will also be preserving his line. Then in the time of Noah's civilization, when the whole earth had been corrupted and the angels had been introduced to corrupt humanity, God also chose Noah. And you always see that the people that God chose, what God asked them to do appeared very mundane or very ordinary, and it didn't appear imposing. It didn't appear sophisticated, because, for instance, like in Noah's time, you see, Bible says they were building, they were planting, they were marrying and they were given in marriage and all that. And God called Noah. God said, build me an ark. Now build me an ark. And Noah spent all his life, his time building an ark, and it looked so funny. There's a man who says God is going to destroy the earth, destroy people with a flood, and he's building an ark. And it's also funny. And God did not call a carpenter to build the ark, he called a farmer. Noah was a farmer, not a carpenter. And so right from the word go, it appeared very, very, very silly, and then also funny that if you are thinking of building a structure, why do you take a farmer to build an ark? You could have taken a carpenter. But the reason for that is that, see, God has never endorsed I will. God doesn't want one to ever boast of anything. A carpenter could easily have taken credit. You could have said that, I have a degree in carpentry and joinery, and that's why I was able to build the ark. But this one, he chose a farmer who knew nothing about building. Then he said, now you build me an ark. Then he said, he gave him the dimensions. Then when the next civilization was what we talked about, when Nimrod began to rule. When Nimrod began to rule, and Nimrod established all these things, the one we talked about, politics and governance and all that, that was the same time God called Abraham. But when God called Abraham, look at Nimrod's time, their purpose statement. They said, let us come together, let us build a city and a tower whose top will reach into the heavens. And let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be scattered abroad over the surface of the earth. And you realize that their main focus was the I will. The I will. Let us make a name for ourselves. Let us build a city. Let us build a tower. Okay. So, but then when God called Abraham, God didn't ask Abraham to build anything. God didn't ask Abraham to build anything. It was as if he was not serious. The cosmos, man was into building, structures, putting up structures and all that. And they had tangible edifices to show that it was a civilization. And when you went to the site, you will see activity, brisk. You will see brisk activity on the site. But when you go to God's side, you will see Abraham, and all that he ever has built is an altar. and what is an altar in the face of a tower and a city? But that's the kingdom of God. You see, but Abraham God was using him to build something in the spirit. To build. So God said, when you check Genesis 12, and God has said to Abraham, get out of your father's house. Now God told Abraham, he said, I will make your name great. I will make your name great. See, I will make you a great nation. Okay. Go to verse 1. And the Lord has said to Abraham, get out of your country, from your family, and from your father's house, to a land that I will show you. I will make you a great nation. I will bless you and make your name great, and you shall be a blessing. Now, this is God telling Abraham, I will make your name great. And these people said, let us make a name for ourselves. You see the contrast. So the I will people said that, let's make a name for ourselves. But for Abraham, God said, I will make your name great. You will see these two paths clearly in scripture, always. The path of the two trees. You see people who depended on themselves, on self-effort, selfish ambition, self-centeredness. And you will see people who were dependent on God. And it will always appear as if these ones are the ones that are, because they are involved in the imposing things. So that's what God told Abraham to do. And so while Nimrod was building empires and all that, Abraham started building altars. But heaven's account from Genesis chapter 4 to chapter 12, if you want to see heaven's record of these 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, these 8 chapters, go to Hebrews 11. Hebrews 11. You will see Hebrews 11 from 1 to 8. Look at heavens. Heaven always has a different set of records. So while earth was, burning with activity all over and all that, heaven didn't take notice. Heaven took notice of only 4 men. Out of the whole lot, only 4 men. And the 4 men are Abel, Enoch, Noah, Abraham. Because these are the 4 people that represented the various civilizations and represented God's path in the various civilizations. So you will see from verse 4, by faith Abel offered to God a more excellent sacrifice. Then by 5, by faith Enoch was taken away so that he did not see death. Now, he didn't mention all the other guys, He didn't mention Nimrod, all those. No, Enoch. That was heaven's report. Then verse 7, by faith Noah. So God took notice only of the people of faith. Because as we are going to see, faith is the only way to overcome the cosmos. And I'm going to explain what faith is. So heaven was taking notice of these guys and not what was going on in the world. And when Abraham was working with God and God will often come and give him promises and instructions here and there and all that, all those things, God was also setting up, increasing, enlarging his influence. So at a point, heaven's activity revolved around altars. Abraham's altar, Isaac's altar, Jacob's altar, and they were all erecting altars. In fact, the patriarchs, their lives were summarized as they lived in tents and they built their altars. So they built their altars and they lived in tents. I have a book called Build Your Altars, Pitch Your Tents. They pitched their tents and they built their altars. Which means that their lives revolved around the altar that God instructed them to build. That was what was permanent in their lives. That was what was major in their lives. So they majored on the altars and they minored on the tent. Now the tent represents their living and all that. The altars represented the eternal dimension to their lives. That is faith. The eternal dimension, what connects them to eternity. That is faith. Now, it does not mean that in this world they did not achieve anything. Abraham was a mighty prince among the people. Abraham was rich in cattle, rich in gold, rich in all that. But that was not the main point of his life. Meanwhile, the people of Babel and all those guys, the main point of their lives was the earth, the material stuff. Let us build a name, lest we be scattered abroad the surface of the earth. That was the main point of their life. But Abraham was also, rich and all that, but that was not the main point of his life. The major aspect of his life was the altar that he built. Isaac also came and he also built altars for God. And Isaac built altars. In fact, Abraham's altars that he built, Isaac and Jacob, they traversed. Their journeys were just around those altars. Because all those altars were around Salem. I showed you yesterday. All those altars were around Salem. And Salem was in the middle. And they were building altars either on the north, the south, the east, and west of Salem. So Jacob also built altars. Now, there was a point where God decided to enlarge his influence from altars. So now he instructed them to build a tabernacle. That's Moses' time. A tabernacle was simply an altar with a tent. There were 2 altars in the tabernacle. There was the big altar, the bronze altar in the outer court, and the golden altar of incense in the holy place. So the tabernacle was also altars and an altar with tents around it. The life of the Israelites, all their lives revolved around altars. You see, when Abraham was working with God, he was dwelling in tents and rather building altars. Now that became a practice for all of them. Lot also journeyed with Abraham, but Lot did not really take after Abraham's line. He was not influenced sufficiently by Abraham, because if you check Lot's life, there was a point where Lot was motivated by the I will. Selfish ambition, self-effort, self-centeredness. If you check Genesis chapter 13, for instance, there's a story in Genesis 13 that is very interesting. When you read from verse 12, okay, let's read from verse 7. And there was strife between the herdsmen of Abraham's livestock and the herdsmen of Lot's livestock. The Canaanites and the Perizzites then dwelt in the land. So Abraham said to Lot, please, let there be no strife between you and me, and between my herdsmen and your herdsmen, for we are brethren. Now, they were not brothers, but they were brethren. They were family, but they were not brothers. Abraham was Lot's uncle, and he was the one who raised Lot when Lot's father died. You remember when they were traveling, Lot's father died, and Abraham took him along, So he was raising Lot. It's not the whole land before you. Please, separate from me. If you take the left, then I will go to the right. Or if you go to the right, then I will go to the then I'll go to the left. You see, a blessed person is not in a hurry. And Abraham was working with his blessing. He had been blessed by God. And so he was not, he didn't panic. There was nothing, there was no insecurity in him. How you get to me? And he said, well, you can choose either portions. Yeah, if you choose left, I will choose right. If you choose right, I will choose left. And Abraham asked Lot to choose first. And verse 10, and Lot lifted up his eyes and saw all the plain of Jordan, that it was well watered everywhere, before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, like the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt, as you go towards Zoar. Then Lot chose for himself. See, Lot chose for himself all the plain of Jordan, and Lot journeyed east, and they separated from each other. Now, when he saw these things, it was a mirage. He saw it as, this land is fertile. Looking at the appearance, it was fertile, and the greed and the selfish ambition in him motivated him to choose. Now, if your uncle Abraham, who certainly has a covenant with Jehovah, and you have seen God with him over the period, if he tells you, you choose one, what should have been the wise thing to do? You say, oh, no, I will not choose. You are my uncle. No, you choose. You choose the one that will be good for you. Then I will choose the one that is left. But Lot said no. He chose. Verse 12. Abraham dwelt in the land of Canaan, and Lot dwelt in the cities of the plain, and pitched his tent, even as far as Sodom. Now Lot had, Abraham was into tents and altars. We never heard that Lot built an altar. but he was also dwelling in tents. Now, before long, he had a house in Sodom. Sodom, there was no altar in Sodom. There was no altar in Egypt. All the altars were outside of Sodom and Egypt. So Lot pitched his tent as far as Sodom. But the men of Sodom were exceedingly wicked and sinful against the Lord. And the Lord said to Abraham, after Lot had separated from him, lift your eyes now and look. You see clearly two separate lines. Lot lifted up his eyes and looked and saw the plain and chose. But for Abraham, it was God who said, lift up your eyes. That is faith. So one is I will, and Abraham's own his will. God said, lift up your eyes. But for Lot, Bible says Lot lifted up his eyes and looked and chose for himself. It's always like that in scripture. So he said, lift your eyes now and look from the place where you are, northward, southward, eastward, and westward. For all the land which you see, I give to you and your descendants forever. And I will make your descendants as the dust of the earth, so that if a man could number the dust of the earth, then your descendants also could be numbered. Look at such a blessing. But it wasn't from Abraham's initiative. When now finally Lot got to Sodom, there was a point where Lot built a house in Sodom. That was contrary to the tradition of the patriarchs, because the patriarchs never built houses. Okay, they pitched tents and then they built altars. But in Sodom, Lot built a house. They didn't build an altar, and then so that means he was entrenched. He became entrenched on the earth, and he was pursuing his own agenda. When they went to Egypt, I'm talking about Jacob's sons, and they became a nation in Egypt. The true godly living was lost. In Egypt, which is the fourth major establishment, Egypt was a civilization that was very, very sophisticated. Egypt, in today's terms, we can say Egypt was like America, a very great nation, in all respects, great in all respects. And when the people of Israel were in Egypt, they lost the tradition of the patriarchs. Their lives did not revolve around an altar and tent. They were rather building cities for Pharaoh, Pithom, and Ramses. Exodus chapter 1, verse 10 and 11, it said that they built treasure cities for Pharaoh. And these cities were Pithom and Ramses. And it was the people of God who were building that city for Pharaoh. It wasn't, so the Kosmos has always wanted to enslave man. And when they got to Egypt as slaves, then they started building these treasure cities for Pharaoh. Now, God wanted to let them come out of Egypt so that they will continue the journey, the tradition of the patriarchs. Now, Egypt was well versed in education. In fact, for Egypt had many strengths. One of them is education. When you read Acts 7:23, you will see that Egypt had education. The Bible refers to the wisdom of Egypt. Wisdom of Egypt. Acts 7:22 said, 22, okay. And Moses was learned in all the wisdom of the Egyptians and was mighty in words and deeds. Do you know that Egypt was the first country that started writing, developing alphabets? Egypt. And so in history, they said civilization started along the banks of River Nile. They were well versed in education, wisdom, and also religion. Egypt was an occultic city. I mean, they were very, very deep into spiritual power, to the extent that in Exodus 8 verse 18, you will see when anytime Moses will perform a sign, the Egyptians, the magicians in Egypt will also perform the sign. Exodus 8:18, it says, now the magicians so worked with the enchantment to bring forth lies, but they could not. So there were lies on man and beast. Then the magician said to Pharaoh, this is a finger of God. But Pharaoh's heart grew hard. He did not hit them, just as the Lord had said. So when Moses put his rods down, Pharaoh also called Jane and Jambres. And he said, come and put your rods down. And they put their rods down. And their rods also turned into snakes. So what power do you have? But Bible says the rod of Moses swallowed the snakes of Pharaoh. See, so he swallowed this. But they were able to also bring the plagues. When he brought frogs, they also brought some, just to let him know that we also have power. Yes, and that was the devil. Because they had formed that partnership with Satan to the extent that now they were enjoying the supernatural of the devil. This one was not only the creativity of man. Egypt was a combination of the creativity of man and the supernatural power of the devil. Then they had politics. Exodus 1 verse 11. You know how they were building cities, treasure cities. It was leadership. The Pharaoh was there, and they had taskmasters who were to ensure that the policies of Pharaoh were implemented. Then they had economic power, commerce, trade. It was Egypt that started selling grain. In Genesis 42 verse 2, you will see that Jacob told his sons, I've heard that there's grain in Egypt. Why do you sit here and die? He said, indeed, I've heard that there's grain in Egypt. Go down to that place and buy for us there, that we may live and not die. And that was when Joseph was in Egypt. Egypt had money. They had economic power. Then, one thing that Egypt was noted for was military might. In fact, in Bible times, chariots from Egypt were a symbol of might. They had military strength. So in Isaiah 31 verse 1, God said that you should not rely on the chariots of Egypt. People were going there. People were going to Egypt to buy chariots because they had military might. So look at such a civilization and look at how sophisticated they were. He said, woe to those who go down to Egypt for help and rely on horses, who trust in chariots because they are many, and in horsemen because they are very strong, but who do not look to the Holy One of Israel, nor see the Lord. You remember when Pharaoh was chasing the people of Israel, it was the horsemen and the chariots. God overthrew them in the Red Sea. And that was the end of the nation Egypt. Because God made sure that he set them up, and they followed the people of Israel, and they even followed them into the Red Sea. I mean, can you imagine? I mean, I would have been afraid to follow them into the sea. Now you've seen that by an act of God's power, the sea has been parted into two. That should have made you afraid. So they followed them through to the middle. Then God began to trouble them. He removed the wheels of the chariots. God was looking at them through the pillar of cloud. And then he began to trouble them. Or the Jew ties, remove the wheels so that they can't run. Then when the people had crossed, then the sea came back. So that was, so God buried Egypt and his strength. And because Egypt was so great, Pharaoh was so proud. As a matter of fact, Pharaoh was deemed a god. Yeah, Pharaoh was a god. They said Pharaoh was a god. So he had so much power, and he was so proud. Now all these guys, they are types of the Antichrist. Nimrod, Pharaoh, Nebuchadnezzar, they are all types of the Antichrist. So now, if you look at education, for instance, education did not come from the devil. No, you see, it came from man's intellect. It is as man began to discover things for himself, that man began to see, to research into the creation of God, to research into science, to research into other areas and all that. Then theories were propounded, and models were designed. Modules were also developed, and man began to dispense knowledge, intellect. Now, Adam was not educated. Adam was not educated from outside. Adam did not use the intellect to do things. When he named the animals, it was a spiritual act. He didn't use his mind. Because he didn't only name them, he imparted their identities to them. You can't just say dog and then dog behaves like dog. No, without any spiritual backing. So it wasn't just intellect, it was a combination of the wisdom of God. You see, the wisdom of God carries the power of God. Because the wisdom of God, one of the pillars of God's wisdom is counsel. Counsel and might, mighty works. When the counsel of God counts, then the might of God, the power of God is released. But here you see education, and so education came from man, but the devil quickly assigned his principality, that now they have built this thing called education. Now we know that man relies on it for knowledge. So let us hijack it and open another gate of hell so that we can use that education to, number one, miseducate, misinform, and enslave. So that is why the people who came out with certain theories, and they said, God, there's no God, like Karl Marx and all those guys who came. People said that there was no God. Somebody can be educated and then he can study many things and conclude that there's no God. God is not against education at all. But when it is left on its own, it will always follow a trend outside of God. That is why anytime the people of God, the enemy is able to see that principality that supervises education, what he does is that he promotes the reasoning power, the common sense of man, and then he tries to superimpose it over spiritual knowledge. Because man receives knowledge from the five senses. But Adam's knowledge didn't only come from five senses. There was another medium through which knowledge was dispensed, and that was the spirit of revelation. You see, but now it's not like that. So education was also then religion. Egypt also had religion. So now, so far, the kingdoms or the gates of hell that has been opened through our study up to Egypt. We see commerce. Commerce is one of the kingdoms that we see that Mammon has been appointed to oversee commerce. Pleasure is also one of the kingdoms. Then we see that another spirit is also controlling pleasure. We have a spirit called the spirit of the world. In 1 Corinthians 2:12, there's one spirit called the spirit of the world. Now, that spirit is also responsible for the pleasure of the world. All that is in the world that will make a person live the path of God. There is that spirit that is responsible for it. It's the spirit of the world. So we have not received the spirit from the world, but the spirit who is from God. So that spirit of the world, that's the spirit that is responsible for that. Then you see politics. You see politics. So that is why pleasure is not bad, entertainment is not bad, but look at the entertainment that is in the world. And look at the trend. Look at the posture of the entertainment industry, the entertainment world. You see the lust of the flesh, lust of the eyes, pride of life. Look at people who are into showbiz, and look at how sometimes they are susceptible to various influences. You know, that entertainment, that showbiz and all that was created by man, but the devil quickly appointed an overseeing spirit and established the gates of hell. So there are many people who are going to hell through entertainment. Yes. Because if you look at the secular entertainment now, you will see many things. You will see that, number one, you will see they are attempting to shape, to direct the course of the world, to determine where the world will be swayed to. Yes. And that's why that industry is the one that is having billions of dollars. Billions of dollars. Now, that kingdom has been so established that now, even as believers and as children of God, it takes a lot of effort to penetrate that kingdom. It is so structured that it takes a lot of effort. You see, right now, look at, if you go to social media, you will see many things. If you watch entertainment news, you will see many things. If you search on the internet, you will see many things. You will see how the world is directed by entertainment. So when they want to push their trends, they push them through showbiz. If you see a particular fashion on TV, you can be sure that very soon you will see people going after that trend. That's entertainment. Then family. Now, family too is another kingdom that has been established, and family too was established by man, not the devil. It was by man. When even God established marriage and established family, but when man fell, man did not stop. He did not stop family. Man was still practicing family. What the devil did was to appoint an overseeing spirit, because remember, man still had dominion, but the devil had authority to appoint a spiritual government. You see, so he appointed a spirit that will oversee that. Then you see, now the family unit has broken down. That's where you see divorce will come. You see many other negative things. Do you know, for instance, that when there are strong families, there are strong societies, and then there are strong nations. And strong families can only come when there are strong marriages. So that's why the devil attacks marriage. You see, one of the most powerful platforms of spiritual warfare is marriage. Yes. One of the most powerful platforms of spiritual warfare is marriage. Because if two shall agree touching a thing on earth, it shall be done in heaven. Now, what perfect agreement when two people are one? So when the two are one, that's why when the two come together, the net effect is exponential. It's a multiplication, not addition. Two, that's why 1 + 1 is equal to 1. But I say one shall chase 1,000, and two shall chase not 2,000, but 10,000. So the net effect is always greater than your individual output. So the devil has an agenda to fight marriages. I remember years ago, a man of God said he sat on the plane. Then he was sitting by somebody who was an occult person, and they started talking. Then the occult person said that they were embarking on a 21-day fast. Then he said, "Why?" He said, "We are fighting Christian marriages." Yes. He said, "It's not." One day I had a vision, and in the vision I was passing by some people who were worshiping in their temple, and they were worshiping, all that, and saying all the Arabic. I don't know. I don't know what is it Arabic or French, or I don't know. And as I was passing by, then in the dream, I could understand what they were saying. And they were saying, we project into the sun, into the moon, to fight against their businesses, against their marriages. And I knew that they were targeting Christian business and Christian marriage. At that time, I had an instruction to embark on a 14 days all night, every night of the 14th. It was in May. And I didn't know that then the very first day I was to start the fast and the all night. That very first day was when they started their fasting. I didn't know. So I was in the office where somebody called and they were talking. I said, "Oh, they have started their fasting today. So this thing that I said, we have to." Then I said, "Oh, okay, so it's today." And the instruction also came yesterday. It was a Monday. The instruction came on a Sunday. That from tomorrow, give me 14 days of your night. And I didn't know what it was, the prayers I was going to pray, but I just obeyed. So it was one of the nights that I had that vision. Then I understood that the reason for the instruction was to let me position myself to be able to see, to know what happened. These people can project into the sun and the moon. David said, "The sun shall not strike you by day, neither the moon by night." They can do projection. Sometimes they have to wait for the movement of the moon before they take decisions. And people don't know why they do that. So families are under attack. So if that's why, for instance, we spend time here talking about marriage. And somebody will say that, "Oh, but why do you do school of marriage?" And most of them are not even married. Some of them are not even thinking of marriage now. They are in school and all that. No. That's part of kingdom culture. See, when you have kingdom thinking, your mind is shaped. When your mind is shaped by kingdom culture, it becomes a part of you. So you will see that when you are going to marry, you are not going to allow that principality to enter it, because it's possible. I was telling some people that, because it's a platform for warfare, that's why in the Bible, before Paul taught spiritual warfare, as in put on the whole armor of God and fight and stand against the wiles. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers and rulers and all that. Before Paul talked about that, Paul addressed the issue of marriage. In fact, after he had talked about their lives, who they are in Christ, and then their connection to the body of Christ and their character, then he talked about relationship, and he talked about marriage. Then after marriage, then he said, "Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and put on the whole armor of God." You see, the reason is that the devil can attack that. That's why even you say that, husbands, your prayers can be hindered. if you don't dwell with your wives in according to knowledge, it can block your prayers. Now, when your prayers are hindered, who is a hinderer? The devil. He is the one who hinders. Paul said, I, Paul, wanted to come to you, but Satan hindered me. The devil is the hinderer. So when there is a problem between husband and wife, it is a platform that the devil is afraid of. So Satan will fight against marriages. That is why there are many people who sometimes, you in the ministry, you see that the devil is fighting against the marriages of men of God, women of God, fighting seriously. And even now, as I speak right now, somebody was telling me about the divorce rate, and it is serious. Not outside, in the church. And there's one particular denomination where the people, the pastors, have submitted a petition to their leader that he should allow them to divorce their wives. Yes. I had a dream some time ago. It was very, very, very clear. And there was a gathering. And there were 3 people. And these 3 people, one of them had to take the microphone and release something into the atmosphere for it to cover and all these 3 people, the microphone got to them, and then they took it and said, no, I can't. And the only problem, the common thing about the 3 is that their marriages have broken down. So it was given to another person, for him to do it. That's why I know that it's a serious thing. So people sometimes, when we are talking about marriage and all that, they don't take it seriously. They think that it's a carnal thing. It's not a carnal thing. Then, okay, information. Okay. Now, the 5th major establishment, which I'm going to talk about, which is the one that I'm going to talk about, is Babylon. Babylon. Now, Babylon is the 5th major establishment. When I say establishment, I'm talking about how the cosmos, the architecture of the cosmos was done. So Babylon 2 is one. In Revelation, you will come across a very interesting figure called Mystery Babylon the Great. And Mystery Babylon the Great, one of her inscriptions is that she is the mother of harlots. And when you read Revelation 17, 18, that is where, but 17 is what talks about him. Okay, let's read 17. Verse 1. Then one of the 7 angels who had the 7 bowls came and talked with me, saying, come, I will show you the judgment of the great harlot who sits on many waters, with whom the kings of the earth committed fornication. And the inhabitants of the earth were made drunk with the wine of her fornication. So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast, which was full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. The woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet, and adorned with gold and precious stones. You see adornment, you see gold, precious stones, and pearls, having in her hand a golden cup full of abominations and the filthiness of her fornication, and on her forehead a name was written, Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and of the abominations of the earth. And I saw the woman drunk with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. And when I saw her, I marveled with great amazement. John was taken into the wilderness to see Mystery Babylon, but he was taken to the mountain to see New Jerusalem. So in the wilderness, you will see Mystery Babylon. But anytime God wants to show you something, he will take you to a mountain. Anytime God wants to show you something, he will take you to a mountain in the Bible. But this time, he wanted to show John Mystery Babylon, and he took John to the wilderness to show him. Then he said, the mother of harlots. Now, Babylon is Babel. You know, Babel started in Genesis 10:11. Now, then Babylon started in Daniel. Then Mystery Babylon is in Revelation. So it's more like a progression. And he's the mother of harlots. Harlot cities. There are cities in the Bible that are harlot cities. Harlot cities. Cities like Sodom, like Enoch, the first city that came built. Enoch, Egypt, Sodom, and Babylon. All these cities were harlot cities. They were structures of the cosmos that was in progression, and they were harlot cities. Unlike cities like Shechem, Bethel, Hebron, Moriah, Salem. These cities were not harlot cities because these cities, they were altars. Abraham built altars in them. But these other cities where the people of God always went there and they lost godly living. Like Sodom. Like Lot went there and instead of building altars, Lot did not build any altar. Like Egypt. Like Enoch. Like Babylon. All these are aspects of the cosmos that have been designed to make sure that the people of God, you see, the gates of hell has been established to make sure that they fight against the people of God. That's why all the patriarchs, there was an alluring attraction that Egypt held. They were all attracted to Egypt, some way, somehow. They were all, maybe because of famine. Abraham went down to Egypt because of famine. As for Jacob, he went down with all his children because of famine. I mean, you see, and that's how it is. That it has always been attracting the people of God. So, Mystery Babylon, by the time we get to Nebuchadnezzar's Babylon, you will see the cosmos now taking shape. And I'm going to show you certain things that you will be amazed. The cosmos was now taking shape in Nebuchadnezzar's Babylon. So let's go to Daniel 1 for background so that we can understand. Now, Daniel was from the royal family of Judah. In other words, he was a descendant of David. And he was from the royal family. So, look at Babylon was a major breakthrough for the kingdom of darkness. A major breakthrough for the cosmos. And it was powerful in information and in all the other strengths that I've talked about. And look at, in the 3rd year of the reign of Joachim, king of Judah, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came to Jerusalem and besieged it. And the Lord gave Joachim, king of Judah, into his hand with some of the articles of the house of God, which he carried into the land of Shinar. Have you seen Shinar here? You saw Shinar too with Nimrod. Which he carried into the house of Shinar, to the house of his God, into the treasure house of his God. Then the king instructed Ashpenaz, the master of his eunuchs to bring some of the children of Israel and some of the king's descendants and some of the nobles. And look at the criteria. It will amaze you. The Kosmos, they always want the best. The Kosmos, the criteria he set for astronauts. He said, young men in whom there was no blemish, but good looking. So, number one, they were young men, which means they were strong. Number two, they were good looking, which means they were handsome. Number three, gifted in all wisdom. Gifted in all wisdom. Number four, possessing knowledge and quick to understand. Smart people. They didn't want people who were dumb. They wanted smart people. see, that's why sometimes people can say things like, you mean you had first class? And you said the Lord has called you to be a pastor? He said, yes, because people they believe that, for the kingdom of God, we don't need smart people, like those ones. They have to build Pharaoh's cities, and so if let's say you had first class and you say, okay, I'm not saying that if God has not called you, then you go. No, that there are some people that God can tell them, okay, your first class, you are not going to use it in the bank. Then you see that the person, let me give you an example that is true. Like Reverend Institute gave his experience that he did pharmacy at Tech, and he was sponsored by a man. So the man sponsored him to do pharmacy. And by the time he finished the course, the man had opened a pharmacy shop at Bogatanga, hoping that his new pharmacist will come and run the shop. And this man came and then said that, I'm going to do ministry. God has called me to full-time ministry. I'm not running the pharmacy shop. That's a typical example. And obviously the man will not understand. People don't understand why people sometimes can leave everything and say, let me just do this thing. The kingdom is like a treasure, which a man found in a field. And the man saw the treasure was good. Then he hid the treasure, went and emptied his accounts and bought the entire field. But not everybody will see it as a treasure. So then he said, quick to understand. Then, who had the ability to serve in a king's palace, and whom they might teach the language and literature of the Chaldeans. So they wanted young men who were handsome, who were wise, intellectually sophisticated, who had knowledge, they were quick to understand, they were smart, who were confident they could stand in the king's palace. And these young men were going to be made eunuchs. They were going to castrate them. Daniel was part of those young men who were made eunuchs. And Daniel came from the tribe of Judah, the royal family. So look at Nebuchadnezzar. And look at his strategy. Verse 5. And the king appointed for them a daily provision of the king's delicacies, or the wine which he drank, and 3 years training for them, so that at the end of that time they might sit before the king. So Nebuchadnezzar was a smart man, smart king. Look, he took them to school 3 years. That we are going to spend 3 years to indoctrinate you. First of all, we are going to teach you the language of the Chaldeans. And you all know there's a link between language and identity. So, if they succeed in teaching them the language, then they will teach them the literature of the Chaldeans. The Chaldeans were sophisticated. They had literature. They had culture that they wanted to impart to these young men. And their strategy was to impart that culture through systematic teaching, training, and camp them for 3 years and bombard them with literature and history. So after 3 years, then they would come out as people who had embraced the culture, the religion, the nature of the Chaldeans. This is the strategy that we should also adopt in the kingdom. Indoctrination. In other words, shaping people's mind with the truth. You see, one thing, I read somewhere, one Catholic priest, he said this. He said, give me a child of 3 years. Come back for him when he's 10 years. And I can guarantee you, he will be a Catholic forever. And when I saw that, I liked that because it's a mindset of somebody who is serious. Now, when you go to Catholic schools, there's no way you go to a Catholic school, at least Hail Mary there you can recite. Or you can even know more. In fact, in our time at the WAS, we had a course, RK. That course was not examinable. It will not take you to O level. But it was compulsory. And we had syllabus. We had a course structure, course content. And it was taught by brothers, Catholic priests who are brothers. And they will teach us the precepts of the Catholic denomination. And they will teach you why they say Hail Mary, why they say Hail Holy Queen, why they do this Lent, Stations of the Cross, and all that. Now, that is how the kingdom should operate. So, because that is a systematic way of making sure that you shape the minds of people, young minds. What a privilege. So, Catholic schools, I remember once I went for PTA, and then somebody was saying that on Fridays he's a Muslim, and sometimes he wants to come and pick his children to take them to the mosque. And the madam said that, the headmistress said that, he said, no, you knew this was a Catholic institution before bringing your child. We can't allow that. So the guy had to withdraw his children from the school. But sometimes we don't have that mentality. But Babylon had it. So look at the strategy. Teach them the language. And then their literature. Literature, if you understand literature, you see, I was talking to an artist, and he was telling me that art, if you study French art, he said that there's a link between their culture and the art. And he said French art is full of explicit sexual undertones. I mean, it's of sexual nature. So he said when they were doing French art, he realized that this thing is not just art, it's the culture, the inner beliefs of some people that they were learning. So Nebuchadnezzar said, these guys, they are coming from a background where they serve only one God. How can I get them to embrace my many gods? In their background, they speak Hebrew and Aramaic. How can I get them to speak the language of the Chaldeans? From their background, this is what they have been raised to do. So actually, Babylon wanted to change the identity of these guys. And to even buttress it, you know what he did? He decided to change their names. So, Daniel, Azariah, Mishael and Hananiah, he called them Daniel, Belshazzar, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego. So Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, they are not Jewish names. They are Babylonian names. And when your name is changed, it means your identity. Nebuchadnezzar did everything to change their identity so that they will be cut off from their past. And as if that was not enough, to get them to yield to him, he gave them food sacrificed to idols. If you eat Nebuchadnezzar's food, you can never get the boldness to stand before him and tell him, I will not bow to your image. You see where he was going? The matter of eating in the Bible is always very, very crucial. Our first parents, they fell by eating. And this one, Daniel too said, no. Seeing all this, Daniel said, no, I am not going to bow. I will not eat the king's food. I will not drink the king's wine. So, and the name Daniel means God is judge. God is judge. And Daniel's name was changed to Belshazzar. Okay, so then verse 8. But Daniel purposed in himself, in his heart, that he would not defile himself with the king's food, with a portion of the king's delicacies, nor with the wine which he drank. Therefore he requested of the chief of the eunuchs that he might not defile himself. He was in a foreign land. These guys were serious people. They were in a foreign land. They had been captured as slaves, castrated, and still they were holding on to their God. I always ask myself, what at all did Jacob put into Joseph for him not to compromise in a foreign land? Because nobody was there. There was nobody of his family who was there. There was nobody who knew him. So sometimes I said, okay, maybe, you see, he passed on something like an altar, faith. The same thing applies to Daniel. Every Jewish boy at the age of 12 years, you go through what they call bar mitzvah. And bar mitzvah, by the time you get to 12, you must have memorized the entire Torah, the 5 books of Moses. And just like now they do Makaranta, you memorize it, the Torah. You know everything inside out. Then, at your bar mitzvah, you will come before the elders and the scribes and the leaders. And they will examine you and ask you questions. It was such an occasion that Jesus Christ was taken to, and then they asked him questions, and he answered. And he also asked them questions, and they couldn't answer. So every Jewish boy, before you are promoted to be a ruler of the synagogue, you must be somebody who is well versed in the Torah. That's why the rich young ruler, Bible calls him the rich young ruler. He was rich, he was young, and he was a ruler of the synagogue, which means he knew the Torah. Jesus Christ said, you know the law. Do not murder. He said, from my youth, I have followed these things. He was a rich young ruler. So Daniel too, by the time they got to Babylon, they had gone through all these things. And it was deep-seated. So Nebuchadnezzar did everything possible. And when he saw that he could not touch them, he tried to change their names. It didn't work. Then he said, let me give them my food. Once I give them my food, I can get them to not to compromise. And Daniel said, no. I will not allow myself to be defiled. So he requested from the chief eunuch. But verse 9, now God had brought Daniel into the favor and goodwill of the chief of the eunuchs. And the chief of the eunuchs said to Daniel, I fear my lord the king, who has appointed your food and drink. For why should he see your faces looking worse than the young men who are your age? Then you will endanger my head before the king. So Daniel said to the steward, whom the chief of eunuch had set over Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, please test your servants for 10 days and let them give us vegetables to eat and water to drink. Then let our appearance be examined before you, and the appearance of the young men who eat the portion of the king's delicacies. And as you see fit, so deal with your servants. So Daniel says, okay, now I'm throwing a challenge. 10 days. See, 10 days, the number 10 is always for accountability. So it's for accountability, it's for deliverance. 10 days. After 10 days, if you find that our faces are not like the others, you have every right to give us the king's food. So he consented with them in this matter and tested them 10 days. At the end of the 10 days, their features appeared better and fatter in flesh than all the young men who ate the portion of the king's delicacy. Thus the steward took away their portion of delicacy and the wine that they were to drink, and gave them vegetables. As for these 4 young men, God gave them knowledge and skill in all literature and wisdom. And Daniel had understanding in all visions and dreams. Now, at the end of the days, when the king has said that they should be brought in, the chief of the eunuchs brought them in before Nebuchadnezzar. Then the king interviewed them, and among them all none was found like Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah. Therefore they said before the king, and in all matters of wisdom and understanding about which the king examined them, he found them 10 times better than all the magicians and astrologers who were in his realm. Thus Daniel continued until the first year of King Cyrus. He survived 4 empires: Nebuchadnezzar, Belshazzar, Darius, and Cyrus. He survived 4 empires. So the 10-day challenge was, he took a stand for God and said, I'm not going to compromise. I won't eat the food. If I eat the food right now, I will lose the confidence to say no to the image, golden image. See, the same thing applies to Adam. When they ate the food, that's when they bowed. 2 people in the Bible who had similar graces were Daniel and Joseph. And both of them resolved not to defile themselves. They had similar graces in the sense that they both were in foreign lands. And they both rose into leadership. And they both had the gift of interpretation of dreams. And they both dominated their empires for God. They dominated. In fact, for Joseph, he said, I am now a father to Pharaoh. In other words, what I tell Pharaoh, that's what he will do. And Daniel too dominated. It got to a point, Daniel, when Belshazzar came, he ignored Daniel. But later, they had to bring him back because there was a hand that came to write on the wall. He was an old man then. Then he came. Then he said, it's only you that can help us understand. Then Darius too, his time, Daniel was there. In fact, Darius promoted Daniel because Belshazzar made Daniel number three in the realm. And when Darius came, he promoted Daniel to be the head of the 120 satraps. So he became first among the three who were the leaders of the 120. And Daniel was one person who was a major breakthrough for the kingdom of God. One man stood in opposition to Babylon and brought Babylon to its knees. One man. Do you know that Nebuchadnezzar fell? He prostrated before Daniel. That was a very serious thing which had serious implication. Nebuchadnezzar was a god. They knew him to be a god. The pharaohs and the kings of Babylon, that's how they projected themselves as gods. You remember Darius said, for the space of 1 month, nobody should make any petition to any god but the king. They revered them as gods. Now, so for him to have fallen before Daniel meant that Daniel was a god. And that is why when he set up the image, he could not invite Daniel to come and bow. He only invited Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego. He didn't invite Daniel. Daniel was there. But how can you invite somebody that you are falling before to worship? He himself is a god. So how do you invite a god to come and bow down to a god? You see, we see how Daniel dominated Babylon. I'm going to show you some of the things you see in Daniel's life that dominated Babylon. Now, in Babylon, the Kosmos added another dimension. And when you read Daniel 3, when you read verse 2, let me show you. When the king had a dream, the king said, I had a dream, and I've forgotten the dream and the interpretation. So he called all the wise men, the astrologers, the magicians, and said, you, show me the dream, tell me the dream I had, then the interpretation. And the wise men said, no, it has never happened before. If you tell us the dream, we can interpret for you. He said, no. Now I know that you guys, you have been deceiving me. If you tell me the dream, then I will know that truly all the time that you interpret, they have been correct. So he said, by evening, if I don't get anybody amongst you to tell me the dream, they will kill you. He said, I'm going to kill you all. And they started killing. They started killing. Come to verse so verse 13. So the decree went out, and they began killing the wise men. So some of them actually died. Some of them died. And they sought Daniel and his companions to kill them. Then with counsel and wisdom, Daniel answered Arioch, the captain of the king's guard, who had gone out to kill the wise men of Babylon. He answered and said to Arioch, the king's captain, why is a decree from the king so urgent? Then Arioch made the decision known to Daniel. So Daniel went in and asked the king to give him time that he might tell the king the interpretation. His very life depended on that. You see, his very life depended on his relationship with God. He would have been killed with all his friends. Then Daniel went to his house and made the decision known to Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, his companions, that they might seek mercies from the God of heaven concerning this secret, so that Daniel and his companions might not perish with the rest of the wise men of Babylon. And the secret was revealed to Daniel. at night, both the dream and the interpretation. So what happened? After he shared it with Nebuchadnezzar, the last bit, verse 46. Then King Nebuchadnezzar fell on his face, prostrate before Daniel, and commanded that they should present an offering and incense to him. Do you know what that means? That means they were worshiping him. They should present an offering and incense to Daniel. So because Nebuchadnezzar he never thought there was another god from his gods. And that Daniel was one of a kind. That's why he couldn't invite Daniel to the image celebration. Then the king promoted Daniel and gave him many great gifts. And he made him ruler over the whole province of Babylon and chief administrator over all the wise men of Babylon. And Daniel was not a selfish person. So also Daniel petitioned the king, and he set Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego over the affairs of the province of Babylon. But Daniel sat in the gate of the king. So you see kingdom advancement here. Now his three prayer partners, he's also promoting them to take charge. Prayer warriors. So now you see that Babylon is in trouble. Because these are the men at the helm of affairs, and these are men who are spiritual men. At that time, it was a breakthrough for the kingdom of God. God was so happy that I've gotten a man who can promote my interest like that. So, Nebuchadnezzar, in chapter 3, in Daniel's dream, Daniel said, "Oh, king, you are that head of gold." Because he saw an image: gold, silver, bronze, iron, and clay, the feet. And Daniel said, "The Lord has shown you 4 kingdoms, 4 empires that are going to come." Then he said, "You are the head of gold. Okay. After you will come a kingdom that is inferior to yours. Then another kingdom that is inferior will come. Then another kingdom will come. 4 kingdoms. And when the 4th kingdom comes, then he also saw a mountain. Then the mountain, there was a stone that was cut from the mountain without hands. And the stone came and hit the feet of the statue and crushed the statue into powder. And the stone began to grow to become a mountain that filled the whole earth." That was Nebuchadnezzar's dream. So Daniel said that, "You, O king, you are the head of gold. The next empire that will come before you will be the Medes and the Persians. The Medes and the Persian Empire, headed by Cyrus. That will be the next empire that will come. But that will be inferior to yours. Then the next empire will come will be the Greek Empire, headed by Alexander the Great. Pompey. Yes. Then the 4th empire will be the Roman Empire. And so after the Roman Empire, the next one is the kingdom of God, which is like a stone that was cut from the rock without hands, which means without, not of this creation, without man's involvement, without hands. It was cut. Then little stone, it hit the statue. Then it grew to become a large mountain and filled the whole earth. He was talking about the church, the kingdom. Yes, and Bible calls us, we are living stones. We are living stones. 1 John 2:5. So this chapter 3, Nebuchadnezzar said that, okay, if I am the head of gold, then I too deserve to be worshipped. So he made an image of gold, not silver, gold. So Nebuchadnezzar the king made an image of gold whose height was 60 cubits and its width was 6 cubits. He set it up in the plain of Dura, in the province of Babylon. Now, the Babylon, in Babylon, the Kosmos added another dimension, which is another 6. So, man was created on the 6th day, but now it's 6. The image of God was 66 cubits. 60 cubits high and 6 cubits wide. Never 7. 66. Because it was the realm of man. Man's kingdom that was growing, that was advancing. And the height of man's kingdom is going to come with the Antichrist. He will bring the last 6. So that we have the 3-dimensional kingdom of darkness, 666. But it was not, it will not be man's reign. It was Satan's reign. It will still be man's reign. But it is the dragon who will give his power to him. So man will still have dominion, but the devil will still be working with man. 6 number of man, because man was created on the 6th. So the 6 is synonymous with mankind. Everything man is connected to 6. Everything God is 7. God's dimension is 7. Man's dimension is a 6th dimension. You know, when he heated the fiery furnace 7 times, he entered the God dimension. That is why they were 3 people that were thrown, but they saw 4. They saw 4 men who were not bound, and they were dancing in the fire. 3 people, 4 men, 7 times. God's dimension. The highest height man will ever reach is 666. That is when man is in full control. The Bible never says that 666 is the number of the devil. No. The Bible says it's the number of a man, not the devil. So stop saying that 666 is Satan's number. No, it is man's number. Go to Revelation 13. It's man's number. It is a height that man will get to, where man is God by himself, over himself. You shall be as God. It will, the final outcome, the final culmination of you shall be as God will be 666. When now man is in the outer court, holy place, holy of holies, man is worshipped as God. It said that, no, go to verse 12. No, 13. 13 verse. Revelation 13. Okay. It says, verse 16. He causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hand or on their forehead, and that no one may buy or sell except one who has the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man. His number is 666. And I've already taught about this in other messages. I've forgotten exactly which one, but I think one of the messages that I remember is one of the series on the Godhead and the Goodhead. I took time to explain. I said that 666 weight of gold was the gold that came to Solomon every year. Every year. Now, go to 1 Chronicles 9:13. 1 Chronicles 9:13. Oh, is it? I think Second Chronicles rather. It's second 9:13. Okay. The weight of gold that came to Solomon yearly was 666 talents of gold. Now, why is it gold? And 666 talents of gold came to Solomon every year. Now, Solomon is somebody who did something. You know, this morning I was looking at something. I realized that in 1 Kings 10 verse 18 to 20, it shows you kingship, human kingdoms, the dimensions of human kingdom. Okay, because Solomon, even though he was a godly king, he was still a human king. And he said, moreover, the king made a great throne of ivory and overlaid it with pure gold. The throne had 6 steps. Why not 7 steps? So the throne, Solomon's throne, had 6 steps. And the top of the throne was run at the back. There were armrests on either side of the place of the seat, and 2 lions stood beside the armrest. So Solomon's throne had 6 steps. Then Solomon himself had 666 talents of gold. Now the man Solomon represents the highest height any human being can get to. Whatever any height a man can get to, Solomon got to. That's why in the Bible you see that Jesus Christ said, not even Solomon in his glory can be compared to the lilies. It was Solomon that he mentioned because when it comes to the splendor of mankind, Solomon was an example. The man had wealth and wisdom more than all the people that were alive at that time. So the Antichrist, when he comes, he's also going to build an image and cause men to bow down to the image. That is the Kosmos. Now, so the image of Nebuchadnezzar was a 2-dimensional structure of the Kosmos. But in the end, at Revelation, we have the 3 dimensions. 6, 6, 6. That's why you see Babylon in Daniel, the mystery Babylon in Revelation. He will manipulate the 666 to enforce the will of the devil. Now, people bow down to the Nebuchadnezzar image because they were afraid of the fiery furnace. And that is exactly what is going to happen in the world now. It's going to take people who have refused to eat Daniel's and Babylon's food to be able to stand against what is coming and say it doesn't matter what, we are not going to bow. Because when you say you won't bow, you will go through fire. Not that you won't bow and then you are saying you will go through fire. But you see, when you are going through the fire, he will be with you. When you go through the waters, he will be with you. When you go through the fire, it will not burn you. It's talking about the fire that you go through when you take a stand for God. When you refuse to compromise, anytime you refuse to compromise, you are going to go through fire. But that fire, he will be with you. Because when they went through the fire, the devil thought he was burning them up, not knowing he made a mistake. He should have heated the fire maybe 6 times, but he made a mistake and heated it for 7 times. And he didn't know that 7 was God's dimension. So God was attracted into the fire. So there were 3 men, but they saw 4 men and they were dancing and they were on head. They dominated Babylon. They blew the king's mind. If you look at the story, Bible says the king was troubled. And when they were putting the men in fire, the servants who threw them into the fire, they died. They died. The one who is putting you into the fire, he is dead. But you who were put in the fire, he said there was not even smoke, scent of smoke in their garments. What a God. And so Nebuchadnezzar was humbled. He was humbled many times. But still, he was still proud. That's why they made him an animal. Now, you see all kinds of music. It said what? Okay. Okay, chapter 3. Verse 2. And the king sent word to gather together the satraps. Look at his structure. Very, very complex. The satraps, the administrators, the governors, the counselors, the treasurers, the judges, the magistrates, the officials. You know, yesterday I was talking about functions of the kingdom. I was talking about reapers, all these things. He had structures. Satraps, administrators, governors, counselors, treasurers, judges, magistrates, and all the officials of the provinces to come to the dedication of the image which the king had set up. So the satraps, governors, counselors, treasurers, judges, and all gathered together. Okay. And they stood before the image that Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Then a herald cried aloud, to you it is commanded, O peoples, nations, and languages, that at the time you hear the sound of the horn, flute, harp, lyre, psaltery. You see a progression now. Tubal King in their time was flute and harp. But now we see flute and harp still here, but now you see horn. You see lyre. You see psaltery. In fact, the King James added dulcimer. And I was reading a book, and the book illustrated all the instruments. The book is on the Tabernacle of David, written by Kelvin J. Conner. And he drew all the various instruments. And I was trying to study all the instruments, one after the other. But I couldn't finish. Because these instruments, it said, your timbrels and your pipes were prepared in you in the day you were created. So why did they need music? You see, that's the Kosmos. Now, they wanted to create an ambience, an atmosphere. So, as you listen to the music, then you fall down and worship the gold image. Most of the time, you will see that when you are about to compromise, sometimes you'll be playing music. You'll be playing music. When you go to nightclubs, it's not music they play. Sometimes they play soothing sounds. And they create the atmosphere for that. What they call love songs or romantic songs. They play those songs to create a certain ambience. So that you are there, you didn't go there. Your friends said, oh, let's go. But you started listening to the words, and the words were lustful, and you were filled with lust. So, with all kinds of music, all the people, nations and languages fell down and worshiped the golden image. Therefore, at that time, certain Chaldeans came forward and accused the Jews. They spoke and said to the king, Nebuchadnezzar, O king, live forever. You, O king, have made a decree that everyone who hears the sound of the horn, flute, harp, lyre, and psaltery in symphony with all kinds of music shall fall down and worship the golden image. And whoever does not fall down and worship shall be cast into the midst of the fire. So what they did was that they reported them. Okay, so the rest of the story is there. Then verse 14. Nebuchadnezzar spoke, saying to them, is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, that you do not serve my gods or worship the gold image which I have set up. Now, if you are ready at the time you hear the sound of the horn, flute, harp, lyre, and psaltery and symphony with all. I don't know why they kept repeating this. And you fall down and worship me, worship the image I've made. Good. But if you do not worship, you shall be cast immediately into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. And who is the God who will deliver you? Who will deliver you from my hands? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said to the king, O king, we have no need to answer you in this matter. If that is the case, our God whom we serve is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us from your hand, O king. But if not, let it be known to you, O king, that we do not serve your gods, nor will we worship the gold image which you have set up. Gosh. In fact, I watched the cartoon. When the king is speaking, then they are doing, then their jaws will be doing, they are shaking. The Nebuchadnezzar was full of fury. What the guys said, it really pained him. They rubbished him. They said, look, we don't need time. You want to give us time to do what? Think about it. Our minds are made up. We don't need time. Let it be known to you that, yes, we are already serving your gods. From the time you took us to school for 3 years, we refused to eat your food and drink your wine from that time. And we have not been serving your gods. And this one too, we are not going to serve him, worship him. And the king started boiling. He said, and the expression of his face changed toward Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And he spoke and commanded that they hit the furnace 7 times. More than it was usually hit. Sometimes I said the devil works for God. You don't understand. Satan can think he's doing his worst in your life. He does not know that he is increasing or he's pushing your situation to the 7th dimension. He said, though I fall 7 times, I shall arise. Is it not 7 times? Yeah. So the devil can be pushing you, doing many things, and you think he has got you. He thinks he has gotten you. Then he pushes you farther, very far. Then you fall into God's dimension. And he commanded certain mighty men of valor who were in his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and cast them into the burning fiery furnace. Then these men were bound in their coats, their trousers, their turbans, and other garments, so that they cannot run away. Coats and all that. And they were cast into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. Therefore, because the king's command was urgent, and the furnace exceedingly hot, the flame of the fire killed those men who took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And these 3 men fell down, bound into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. Then the king Nebuchadnezzar was astonished, and he rose in haste and spoke, saying to his counselors, did we not cast 3 men into the midst of the fire? They answered and said to the king, true, O king. Look, he answered, I see 4 men loose, walking in the midst of the fire, and they are not hurt. And the form of the 4th is like the Son of God. That's the light that was formed in the 4th day. So the 4th man was the Son of God. Now 3 and 4. You see 3 and 4 here. Then he went to the mouth of the burning fire and then said, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out and come here. Then, later on, he made a decree. He made a decree that anybody who will speak against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego shall be cut into pieces, and their houses shall be made an ash heap, because there is no other God who can deliver like this. Then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the province of Babylon. As for Daniel, he was already promoted. He was a god now, so he was there waiting for them. And these guys too, now they have also become gods. So, what I'm saying is that the cosmos is sophisticated, but we must understand how to dominate the world, how to invade the cosmos. And looking through Daniel's life, I found out like 6 ways that Daniel was able to dominate the cosmos, dominate Babylon. So how do we survive the cosmos, the world? The first one is faith. Faith. 1 John 5:4. 1 John 5:4. For whatever is born of God overcomes the world, and this is a victory that has overcome the world, our faith. So faith is what will overcome the world. And what is faith? After the fall, I said that God established a path of relationship. It was initiated by God for man to reconnect to God by receiving God's instruction and by obeying them. When God said, you cannot be justified by doing what you think, it must come from me, he was establishing that faith connection. That was when God established the principle of faith, that you cannot be justified by doing what you think, covering yourself with fig leaves. No. It has to come from me. So whatever comes from me, if you subscribe to my solution, my provision, that is the part of his will. That's a part of faith. And so faith connotes 3 things: relationship, dependence, revelation. When the Bible says by faith, Abel offered a more excellent sacrifice than Cain, what it means is that by revelation, by relationship, by dependence on God, Abel was able to offer a more excellent sacrifice than Cain. Not by his intellect, not by his wisdom, but by his relationship with God. It was God who gave Abel the revelation of the shedding of blood and said, bring animals. I want to sacrifice animals, not foodstuffs. It was God who gave Abel that revelation. And so the part of faith is a part of dependence on God. It's a part of relationship with God. Not a part of formula and steps. It's relationship. It's a part of revelation. Do you know Daniel survived by his relationship with God, his dependence on God, and revelation from God? It said he consulted his 3 friends, and then they prayed that they might not be destroyed together with the wise men of Babylon. They escaped because they had a relationship with God, they were dependent on God, and they received revelation. These 3 things define faith. That's why you say by faith, Abraham went out of his father's house, not knowing where he was going, but he had a relationship with God. He depended on God to believe God, that God could lead him to the place. And he heard from God. He said, by faith, Moses forsook Egypt, not fearing the wrath of the king. He said he forsook Egypt by faith. Hebrews 11, he said he forsook Egypt by faith. And he said that by faith, Moses, when he came of age, refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, choosing rather to suffer affliction, the people of God, than to enjoy the passing pleasure of sin. So it was by faith, by relationship with God, by dependence on God, by revelation, Moses was able to refuse to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter. In Daniel 6 verse 16, when Daniel was thrown into the Daniel's den, lion's den. I said Daniel's den. Lion's den. The king Darius said, Daniel, the God whom you serve continually, he will deliver you. That was the king, the hidden king, telling Daniel that Daniel, Bible says the king tried to rescue him from morning till evening. He was so sorry that the decree had been against Daniel. He didn't know. He tried to rescue him, and people said, no, king, you know that in our custom, a king's word cannot be reversed. So he had to allow them to throw Daniel into a lion's den. And the king said, Daniel, the God you serve continually, he will deliver you. He survived by his relationship with God. And that's how we are going to dominate the cosmos. Hebrews 11:33. Hebrews 11:33. Okay, he was talking about faith. Verse 32. And what more shall I say? For the time will fail me to tell of Gideon and Barak, and Samson and Jephthah, also of David and Samuel and the prophets, who through faith subdued kingdoms, worked righteousness, obtained promises, stopped the mouth of lions, quenched the violence of fire, escaped the edge of the sword, out of weakness were made strong, became valiant in battle, turned to fly the armies of the aliens. Women received their dead raised to life again, and others were tortured, not accepting deliverance, that they might obtain a better resurrection. Still others had trial of mockings and scourgings, yes, and of chains and imprisonment. They were stoned, they were sawn in two, were tempted, were slain with a sword. They wandered about in sheepskin and goatskin, being destitute, afflicted, tormented, of whom the world was not worthy. They wandered in deserts and mountains, in dens and caves of the earth. So people dominated the cosmos by faith, and the Bible is showing you two sides. Some subdued kingdoms. They subdued kingdoms. They worked righteousness. Many times people who teach faith will never link you to righteousness. And they will say, by faith you will get all that you want. You will get all the material blessing by faith. By faith you will name it and claim it. But this real faith, because of the faith they had, they were able to subdue kingdoms. They were able to work righteousness. They were able to obtain promises. Stop the mouth of lions. So, we are going to dominate in the same way. How was Jacob able to beat the injustice from Laban? Through revelation. Revelation is a component of faith. God told Jacob, now, Laban says your wages will be the speckled. Do this. Through divine direction. By being obedient to the revealed direction of God. That is how he was able to outsmart Laban. That is how we deal with the world. When we are connected to God and we work in relationship with him, we depend on him for the next move, and he gives direction. That is when we can subdue the cosmos. Otherwise, the cosmos will subdue us. You can't subdue the cosmos with common sense. No. It has to be by revelation. Revelation. Abraham dominated the world because he was walking by the instructions of God. Abraham. Because all that Abraham was doing didn't look so big, didn't look so impressive. He was only obeying God moment by moment, building altar when God says build an altar. Never built any empire, any structure, nothing, just an altar, and yet he was dominating. Anywhere Abraham went, anywhere they went, the unbelievers came to them. No, it said, for we have seen that the Lord is with you. It was amazing. For we have certainly seen that God is with you. Abraham became God's man on earth. Wherever Abraham went, God was ahead of him. Why? Relationship, dependence, revelation. David also survived by these three things. Saul's wicked plot. David overcame them by faith. Sometimes David's life hung on how accurate he could discern divine direction. There was one point that he was going somewhere, then he said, bring the effort, let me ask God. He said, should I go? God said, no, don't go. Which means that if he had gone, he would have suffered the consequence. But because of dependence, you see, David was one person who he didn't think he was smart. He didn't think he was smart. He followed God foolishly. Even when it was obvious that the whole nation looked up to him, and he could have staged a coup and dethroned Saul. He said, no, I will not take what has to be given to me. There was a point that he came close to Saul. And the servant said, oh, boss, let me just strike him. I will strike him just once. He will not even say Aji, just once. Ha! He will just die. Then David said, no. Don't touch the Lord's anointed. There were times he came so close to the throne, he could have used human effort, self-effort to annex the throne. In fact, it started when he killed Goliath. And you all know that David's killing of Goliath was backed by divine God. It was God who was pushing him to do that. When the women were saying, Saul has killed his 1,000 and David tens of thousands, and David and Saul became jealous, that was a point where David should have said, now even the whole nation is looking up to me. Let me just kill this Saul. In fact, there was a point where somebody who thought he was doing David a favor brought Saul's crown and said, I saw Saul on the battlefield, and Saul was at the point of death. And Saul asked me to kill him, and I killed him. And now I've brought the crown to you. David said, did you really kill Saul? Why were you not afraid to touch the Lord's anointed? And David killed the man. He killed the man. Now, that would have been a shortcut to the throne. Authority. You see, David did for authority what Abraham did for faith. They raised platforms that God used later on in their lives. And God's way of authority is what David did. When God wants to enthrone you, make you a king, It is not you who must scheme to be a king. It must be God who should put you on the throne. When God put David on the throne, it was so beautiful. You know, it took how many years? It took like 13 years. Matter of fact, it took 20 years for David to see the full manifestation of the prophecy that God gave him. But 13 years it took for him to see, for them to anoint him as king over Hebron. 13 years. Then it took another 7 years for them to anoint him as king over the whole of Israel. And David's kingdom was one of the most stable kingdoms. And in fact, God gave David a dynasty. You know a dynasty? It wasn't just like your son was on the throne. He gave him a dynasty that many people will sit, many people from your line will sit on the throne. And the Messiah too will come and sit. So Jesus came and sat on David's throne. The angel said, and the Lord will give him the throne of his father David. At that time, David was dead. Physical throne was not there. But the angel said, the Lord will give him the throne of his father David. And Jesus sat on David's spiritual throne, the throne that David had erected in the spirit by his obedience to God and by his obedience to God's process. And by staying with God through process, David raised that platform for God. It was a platform of authority. That is how we overcome the world. Number 2, Galatians 6:14. And you can also see this one in Daniel. Galatians 6:14. It says, but God forbid that I should boast except in the cross of our Lord Jesus Christ, by whom the world has been crucified to me and I to the world. The cross. He said, now, first of all, you are crucified with Christ. That one happened. That one is the new birth. You were crucified with Christ. But this one is crucified, the world being crucified to you. Now, this is the second baptism. This is when now the world is crucified to you. This is the Jordan baptism, not the Red Sea, crossing the Red Sea, is crossing the Jordan. From here, you go to the promised land. You enter the Holy of Holies. You enter dominion. When the world is crucified unto you. If the cosmos holds no appeal to you, you can dominate. See, the reason why sometimes God takes us through a lot of process is for the cosmos to lose its appeal to us. Now, if you are still attracted to the lure of Egypt, the lust of the flesh, lust of the eyes, pride of life, you will see that you will have very little impact on the cosmos. That is why when we think that we are applying the kingdom and we think that God should bless us so that we can apply the kingdom. But if you have not been crucified to the world and you have covetousness in your heart, you cannot dominate the cosmos. You can't. You can't dominate the cosmos. If, for instance, you are not dead to the world's praise. You know, there are certain images that the world has. Praise. The world standards. When we have not been delivered from their standards, their way of thinking, their culture, their canons of assessment. We cannot dominate the world, the cosmos. How do we see? Yesterday I was talking about results and success and greatness and all that. How do you measure success? How do you see success? How do you see greatness? What is your definition of achievement? Now, if you are still using the world's definition, then you cannot dominate the world. You cannot invade the cosmos. You can't use the world's standards to reach the world. That's why it's the meek that will inherit the earth. The meek. Meekness is strength under control. See, God's prosperity, for instance, is dispensed in accordance with how the gauge of the transformation of your soul is showing. Because when we talk about God's prosperity, you must get to a point where your soul is at ease. That is when God can trust you with his resources. When your soul is at rest. It says, I wish above all things that you prosper and be in good health, even as your soul prospers. That is meekness. So, the world should be crucified to us. First of all, the flesh is crucified, then the world is crucified. So, baptism by the Red Sea, and then baptism by Jordan, through Jordan. That is the only way we can access the cosmos and invade the cosmos. Now, you can also read Ephesians 3:10. You see how God wants us to display his wisdom to the cosmos. Wisdom to the cosmos. To the intent that now the manifold wisdom of God might be made known by the church to the principalities and powers in the heavenly places. To the church, the manifold wisdom of God might be made known by the church to the principalities and powers in the heavenly places. So, the wisdom of God, the manifold, many-sided wisdom of God must be released. This is not just intellect, not the wisdom of Egypt, but wisdom that has supernatural backing, like Joseph's wisdom, Daniel's wisdom. The way Joseph provided solution to Pharaoh, it was wisdom. So wherever we go, we must believe God, and we must pray that God will give us wisdom that will dominate solutions. You see, when you bring solutions, we release solutions, keys. You exercise dominion. So after Joseph gave the key, Pharaoh said, "Can we find such a man as you have described?" He said, "Then you yourself, you will be the man." 7 pillars of wisdom, as we have already looked at. I preached a message called Impartation of the Spirit of Wisdom, and I've preached on the wisdom of the just, and I've preached on the treasures of wisdom. And these are the 7 pillars of wisdom: understanding, prudence, discretion, knowledge, fear of God, mighty works, counsel. These are 7 pillars of wisdom. And all these 7 pillars, when they are working, we can invade the cosmos. You can use counsel, divine counsel, to apply the kingdom. to bring the kingdom to a situation. You can use the fear of God, mighty works. You can use discretion, knowledge. And then also there's wisdom, that is creativity. The creativity aspect of wisdom. If you are involved in anything that you are doing and you are skillful, you must pray that God will give you creativity. Not only skill. In Exodus 28 verse 3, God filled the hearts of Bezalel and Aholiab with wisdom, with creativity. Creativity to design all manner of artistic works. So you shall speak to all who are gifted artisans, whom are filled with the spirit of wisdom, that they may make Aaron's garments to consecrate him, that he may minister to me as priest. Then righteousness will always rule. Proverbs 16 verse 12 say a throne is established by righteousness. Anywhere you refuse to compromise, you will rule. Anywhere you go and you refuse to compromise, you are going to lead. It's a principle that I'm just, I'm saying, I'm giving to you, because in Daniel's life, he refused to compromise and he ended up reigning. Come to Daniel chapter 6 verse 4. Daniel 6 verse 4. When you read from verse 3. Then this Daniel distinguished himself above the governors and satraps, because an excellent spirit was in him. And the king gave thought to setting him over the whole realm. So the governors and satraps sought to find some charge against Daniel concerning the kingdom. But they could find no charge or fault, because he was faithful, nor was there any error or fault found in him. That's righteousness. He was faithful. Now, if you find yourself in a place serving, these are the things that must be found in you: faithfulness, accountability, stewardship, responsibility. See, sometimes the reason why the world will bow to us is because they see things that they cannot do that we are doing. And they want to find out why we are doing those things they cannot do. So wherever you are, whether at the workplace, distinguish yourself. Distinguish yourself with faithfulness. Don't cut corners. Don't compromise. Don't yield to compromises. Don't steal. Don't follow the crowd. Don't say that, oh, this one, it is done. This one, the rules have already been broken. No, you shouldn't compromise. Because that is how you are going to win. I always tell people that you can win by righteousness. Because if righteousness can exalt a whole nation, it can surely exalt you, an individual. And you will not know, but later on you will know that what you did, the stand you took. I heard a story of one man who said that he used to be a lawyer, and he said one day he was in full-time ministry then. He said he was going through a lot of things, and the Lord told him to go and stand in front of a hotel. And he was standing there. Then 15 minutes later, somebody was coming, and the person had a problem with the taxi driver or so, and this man settled the issue and paid for the person. And the person took his card, not knowing the person knew him. The person took his card, then went to the UK, and there was something that a job or something had to be given to him, an offer, and the person recommended him. When they called him, then the person said, when you were active in the law chambers, you remember there was one case, and he mentioned the case. Yes, I remember. Then he said, you remember two people came to you, some people came to you and offered you bribe that you should relax so that the other side can win. He said, yes, they offered me 500,000 naira or so. Then the man said, one of them was my spy. He said, I did it. One of them was my spy. He said, that was when I realized that you cannot be corrupted. And so, this door that has opened, it is you. And he was saying that he was going for loan. Yes, the man was able to guarantee for them to give him that loan. They didn't take any collateral. The collateral was his honesty. And we should not be in haste to get money, so that we are going to be stealing and we are going to be compromising. It's not every money that you spend. Right from now, learn to live within your means. Put away the desire to impress. Those you want to impress are not even looking. They may not even be looking. So, be faithful. There are many believers who have doors closed upon them because when one door opened, they did not give a good account of themselves. This was a smaller door that opened, and then you will lack accountability. How are you going to be entrusted with a bigger door? And the person may not even tell you that this is what you do. But accountability is basic. Anytime you are giving money to spend, you must account for it. Account for it. Whether the person demands it or not, let it be part of your lifestyle. Just account for it, put it down. Any money you spend, just write it down. Just monitor your spending. Just be responsible. They wanted to find a fault with Daniel. But they said, this Daniel, we cannot trap him when it comes to his work. We can only trap him when it comes to his God. Because you can set him up and you can, try to set him up. But it will fail because he has made up his mind not to compromise. We can win by righteousness. It doesn't matter how long it takes. You can take the shortcut. You will come back. Shortcuts are very long at the end. You go and then you will come back. Sometimes people are so much in a hurry to attain certain standards, which has taken some people years to attain. You want to attain them in 1 year. And you die trying to attain those standards. But all those things are fleeting. What has been given to your hand, put your mind to it, do it diligently, be honest, be faithful, be truthful. Then the supernatural is one way that we can dominate the cosmos. When we bring the supernatural power to bear, of God to bear, healings, miracles, declarations, prayer, and all that. Daniel was prayerful. And this is what we call priesthood. We are the royal priesthood. And I've preached a message called Our Priestly Ministry, Kings, Priests, and Prophets, Melchizedek priesthood. These are 2016 messages. It's all about priesthood. You know, yesterday, somebody sent me a link and he said, Daddy, watch. So I watched, and one man of God was talking about the court systems of heaven. And the person wrote that, now I know that you really you really know ABs. Then I said, but this thing, I taught it in 2016. I taught the court systems in heaven and how the protocols and all that. And I even wrote it in the Resolving Struggle. I lifted it from one of my books, the whole chapter 5. And I said, it's because you have not paid attention. That's what you are hearing this for the first time. You think it's for the first time. It's not the first time. You have heard it, but you have not paid attention. So when you heard it from somebody, because maybe this person is well known, and the person is preaching it now, you heard it, you say, hey, that shows that what you were teaching us was true. I said, this is not what it was true. I said, no, you are wrong. It's not because you've seen this man of God who is popular saying it, that's what you are coming to believe. No. So that's why I try to recommend so that you can listen. But by now, this person should have known all these things, because it has been dispensed already. But he's now hearing it for the first time, and he's saying, "Oh, this is deep." And then when I said that, but he said, "Oh, now I've come to understand that all the things you have been saying and this and that." Then excellence. Now we are there. Excellence. Daniel had an excellent spirit. An excellent spirit. So, excellence is one way that we can invade the cosmos. If we have an excellent spirit, then we can dominate. The 21st century demands excellence. Whatever we do, we must apply the wisdom of God. We must do it well. Whatever we do, we must do it well. Sometimes believers will meet unbelievers, and then the unbeliever is doing something and he's doing it very well, and the believer is not doing it well, because the believer thinks that he has favor. So even if I don't do it well, some way, somehow, God will work a miracle. But that should not be our mentality. You must be competitive. See, if, let's say, you are looking for a contract, you are a believer looking for a contract. Now, you can't just do anything like that to win it. You must go through the process, get the requirements. You must do the proper work. That is what should be seen of Christians. That whatever we are doing, we are diligent. Our focus, we focus on it. We do it well. I remember in 2002, I was doing another service. At that time, I had read Miles Monroe's book, Maximize Your Potential. Release your potential. There were 3 sets. Understanding your potential, releasing your potential, maximize your potential. And when I read that book, I discovered that work is not a curse. Labor is not a curse. And that work is what brings out your potential. So I decided to abandon myself into what I was doing. And in our office at National Service, the work that were given to us, and I mean, people will come and they will just adopt some attitude, and I will go very early. I was always there on time. And as soon as I got there, I'll get to work. And I'll work and work and work. When it's break time, I'll go and eat and come back. Within some few weeks, the boss took notice of me and called me and said that I've seen that you are very diligent and that you are a very serious young man, and I want to tell you will go far. He said, wherever you go to work, you excel because you are very diligent. And later on, he was entrusting many things to me. His money, take this money to the bank, go and collect money from suppliers, because he was also into supplies, drinks and all that. He will give me his car key, and he'll go and pick these things, go and supply. When I come, I will write everything. I got this here, this there, this there. I will account for every pesewa. I never took his money, and so the man literally, sometimes he will not come to work. He will just call the office and tell them to tell me to come, meet him here. Then I'll go and meet him, wait for him. Then he will give me, and he was like that. Because I realized that it's part of life. I mean, you must work. When I started work, I brought that same attitude towards work. I will not look at what somebody is not doing or doing. I will work. And everybody who knows me in my work knows that I really work. Because my mind is not like, I know I have to do it. So when you get work and you are doing, pour yourself, be serious with the work you are doing. Take it seriously. Take it seriously. Do everything that you must do. See, when we say, I preached on, he teacheth me to profit. Part 1 and part 2. And I was talking about how to profit in anything you do. Patience, hard work, accountability, diligence, association, many things. How you can gain profit in whatever you do. And I was saying that hard work, putting yourself to applying yourself to what you are doing. Daniel, you think that if Daniel had not been an excellent person, that he would have attracted the king? No. Because the kings of the earth, you can't stand before them with mediocrity. One thing that the church must abandon is mediocrity. We must seek to be excellent in everything that we do. Whatever you are doing, do it well. Do it well. If you allow for excuses, you will never get anything done. Never get anything done. If you think about the body too much. It said that a lazy man says there's a lion on the road. So he will not even get out. Because he says there's a lion on the road. That's a lazy man. But he said the diligent shall bear rule. The diligent, the one who is diligent. If you're a student, you have to work hard as a student. You have to be studious as a student. Any height people attain is because they invested into it. Everything that you will see on somebody and you like, don't just say that, oh, this one here is luck. It's not like luck. Ask the person. The person has invested in it. If two people are learning how to play the organ, you will see that maybe this person, he will come today, he will not come tomorrow. Now, this person is coming every day. And he's even practicing outside the lesson hours. Which of the two do you think will come out excellently? The second one. So it's very important. The 21st century demands excellence. The kings of the world, they also look for excellence. That is how we can dominate the cosmos. And I know that this series that we are doing is not supposed to be just a teaching that we fill our minds with. It's a practical thing. That you go and then you apply the kingdom. In whatever capacity, you apply the kingdom. Wherever you are, you take charge. Be territorial minded. Anywhere you go, ask yourself, look at your coordinates. Where are my coordinates? What is my reference point? How am I going to dominate? How am I going to apply the kingdom? And when you do that, you will see that the cosmos cannot dominate you. This is the idea of E-lamp. Then the E-lamp is not like it's not like we are going to teach politics or business. No. Somebody was saying that, let's create a platform, let's invite the politicians to come and share their experiences, and let's invite the businessmen in society to come and share their experience. I said, no. If we invite a businessman who has made it, who has money, and he's not somebody who is born again or is kingdom minded, the person is not a good example for you. So why do you bring that person in? If the person is kingdom minded, then the person is a good example. So it's not just a matter of raising businessmen, but businessmen who apply the kingdom, politicians who apply the kingdom. And like I said, the same training you need to be a pastor, the same training you need to be a politician and a businessman, the same training. So we are talking about things like how you can connect, hear the voice of God, how you can take advantage of kingdom moments, how you can apply the kingdom to situations practically. Sometimes you by the time you leave, people encounter you and they leave, they will know that they've encountered something. Because they will never encounter you and go back the same. That is the prayer that we should pray. Okay. So we'll end here today. It's 4:30. I just want you to know that it's 4:30. That it's 4:30 today. So that tomorrow when it's 12:30, you don't complain. I've dashed you 30 minutes. Okay, let's be on our feet. I want us to pray. This Kingdom Power Conference. Kingdom Power Conference. We have been having Kingdom Power Conference, but this is the first time we're talking about Kingdom. So, we are praying that God should empower us so that we can apply the kingdom wherever we find us. So that let that mentality never leave us. The mentality that we should always apply the kingdom to situations. Apply the rule of Christ to situations. Let's begin to pray. Thank you, Lord. Libaha talamaha. Likoko si talabaha. Manderebeko shanlibrahades. Kamba talamako santere meros. Imakandi bradiko zeta nimrahadas. Ko lebali krandala maha suntele maha. Kemata nimakalibo ko shalebaha. Rede bosilia talabaha. Mandere moko zetele mahadas. Likanda malamasita. Imatala makozitele. Ikole mahatalama. Mandiri bokozita lamaha. Likale masita lama. Imahatala makoneba. Imalamako limahali.
You have been so good, yeah. With every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God. I love your voice. You have led me through the fire in darkest night. You are close like no other. I've known you as a father. I've known you as a friend, and I have lived in the goodness of God all my life. All my life you have been faithful. Oh, all my life you have been so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness. Oh, all my life, you have been faithful. Oh, Jesus, all my life you have been so good. With every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God. I will sing of the goodness. Oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. I love you, Lord. Oh, your mercy never fails me. All my days I've been held in your hand. From the moment that I wake up until I lay my head, I will sing of the goodness of God. Let's sing of my life. All my life you have been faithful.